My name is Callie Hart. I'm 23 years old, and what I'm about to share with you is not just a story, it's my truth soaked in fear, blood, and betrayal. They said my cousin drowned in Lark Lake 5 years ago, but they lied. They all lied because I saw her that night. I saw what pulled her under, and now she's back, not for peace, for vengeance, please. Like, subscribe, and share this story to protect the voices that were never heard. This story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries. The town of Lark was built around its lake, still deep, beautiful people fished there, kissed there, baptized their babies in it. It was the town's pride until my cousin Tess died in it. They called it an accident, said she slipped during a storm, hit her head and drowned. Closed casket, closed case. But I never believed that story. Not once. Tess was a swimmer. She knew that lake better than anyone, and I was there that night. I didn't see what dragged her under, but I heard her scream. I saw her fingernails clawing at the wooden dock. I saw something dark wrap around her ankle, yanking her down into the black, and when I told people what I saw, they said I was in shock. They made me go to therapy, said I was projecting trauma. Grief told me to move on, but I couldn't. Best the lake didn't let me. Every year on the anniversary of Tess's death, I dream of her standing in the water. Her hair soaked, her eyes wide and glassy, her arms stretched toward me, whispering, "Come closer." And each year I got a little closer until this year, on the 5th anniversary, I touched the surface of the lake in that dream and everything changed. I started seeing things while I was awake, faces and reflections that weren't mine, water dripping from mirrors, black mold creeping up my bedroom wall in the shape of handprints. My phone would buzz with texts from unknown numbers. "You left me there. I remember. Don't let them breathe easy." I thought I was going insane until I went to the lake in daylight. It looked the same, quiet, calm, but when I stepped onto the dock, I saw her hoodie, Tess's favorite one, red with a white sun print floating by the edge, soaked, but whole. It shouldn't have been there. It had been buried. With Harry picked it up, and that's when the visions began. I saw flashes like a movie unraveling behind my eyes. Tess tied to a rock, her mouth gagged, her eyes wild with terror, a group of people standing above her, not strangers, our friends Samantha, Jonah, Aiden, Leo, people we grew up with. I collapsed on the dock, vomited, screamed. Tess hadn't drowned by accident. They killed her and they all got away with it all. Now I left town the next day, told no one, disappeared for 3 months, not to hide, but to prepare. I study folklore, rituals, water spirits. I researched drownings that never made the news, and I found something horrifying. Lark Lake has a history. Every 5 years a girl drowns, always ruled an accident, always covered up quietly, and always someone connected to the town council. Tess was the latest. She wasn't the first, and if I didn't do something, she wouldn't be the last. So I came back different, colder, determined. I didn't come alone because something followed me out of the lake, and she's hungry for revenge. The first night back, I found Jonah at the local bar, laughing, drinking, living like he hadn't murdered someone 5 years ago. I followed him home. I didn't speak. I didn't attack. I left the hoodie on his porch, soaked and tied at the ankle with twine, exactly how they tied Tess. He found it the next morning. That night he drowned in his own bathtub. No water spilled, just his body, face frozen in terror, lungs filled with lake water. No one believed it was connected, but I did, because the mirror in my room fogged up that night, and in the mist, written with a finger from the other side, was a message. One down. The morning after Jonah's death, Lark turned uneasy, not panicked, not grieving, just twitchy. The kind of town-wide tension you can't see, only feel. Like every whisper lingered longer. Like everyone remembered something they thought was buried, just like Tess. I stood at her grave that morning with the red hoodie bundled in my arms. It had dried overnight, but it still smelled like the lake. I didn't know if it was her spirit inside it or something darker, something older, but I didn't care. She was back, and she remembered everything. Jonah's death was ruled accidental drowning, just like Tess, just like the girls before. The police didn't ask how his lungs were filled with algae, or why the water from his bathtub had the same bacteria as the bottom of the lake. I wanted to scream, to grab every officer and shove them into that cursed water until they saw what I saw, but I didn't, because Tess had a plan. We were just getting started that night. I visited Samantha, the second name on my list, once my friend Tess's best friend, the girl who held her secrets, braided her hair, and then helped drown her. I watched her from across the street. She lived in the same white house she grew up in, like nothing ever happened. Like she didn't tie a rock to Tess's leg and whisper sorry before pushing her. Amy didn't leave the hoodie this time. I left a photograph, a Polaroid of Samantha at the lake 5 years ago, laughing, the last picture Tess ever took before they killed her. I left it on Samantha's car windshield, tucked under the wiper. I watched her find it in The morning her smile dropped, she looked around paranoid, guilty good, because that night it rained and Tess came. I was asleep when it happened, but I saw it all in my dream, if you can call it that. Samantha stood in her kitchen, scrolling through her phone when the sink began to drip slowly, then faster, then violently. She moved to shut the tap off, and the water erupted, bursting upward like a geyser. Her body flew backward into the cabinets, and then the shadows rose from the floor thick and Tess stepped out from them, still barefoot, still soaked, but this time she spoke. You held her arms down. Samantha screamed. It didn't help. The shadows dragged her through the kitchen tiles like they were mud. Her scream choked mid-sentence. She vanished. They found her the next morning, half submerged in her own backyard pool. There wasn't even water in it, just moss, and her body curled like it had been folded by something inhuman, the official report. Cardiac arrest lies, all of it. That evening I walked past the lake again. Something told me to go alone. I stood on the dock where Tess had died, the hoodie tied around my waist, and I whispered, 2 down. The lake rippled behind me. Someone called my name. Turn. No one there, but in the water, a reflection. Tess, only this time she wasn't looking at Mesh, was pointing at the woods toward Leo's cabin. Leo, the one who had lured her out that night, the one who had told her to bring wine, the one who promised her something fun. I hadn't seen him since I came back to town, but now I knew where he was, and I knew what I had to do. I reached out toward the reflection, toward Tess, and touched the water, and the moment I did, I was no longer on the dock. I was standing in the woods, wet, shaking, my hands covered in lake mud. I didn't walk there. Tess brought me. Cabin was lit inside. Leo was pacing. Something had already gotten to him. He had newspapers scattered everywhere, wine bottles smashed, photos pinned to the walls, like he was trying to piece together a truth he buried years ago. I stepped inside without knocking. He spun, his eyes wide. And Callie? He whispered, what are you doing here? I came to ask what happened that night, I said calmly. His jaw tightened. I already told the police everything. Then tell me, I said, was it your idea to tie her down? He backed away slowly. I didn't want to do it, he stammered. It was Jonah. He said we had to. That if we didn't, the lake would take someone else. That it was tradition. My breath caught. What do you mean tradition? He shook his head, sweating. Jonah's dad told him, said it had to be someone innocent once every 5 years or the lake would flood. Take everything we thought it was. Stupid, we didn't believe it until she started choking, and then he dropped to his knees. She looked right at me, and I didn't save her. I stared at him, not with hate, with resolve. Then maybe now she'd come save you. He blinked, and then the windows exploded. The smell of rot filled the room. The walls began to sweat, and from under the floorboards came gurgling. Leo screamed. I turned, walked out, let Tess handle the rest. I heard the splash before I reached the tree. Lenny was gone, swallowed whole, no trace, and behind me in the cabin's shattered mirror a single phrase appeared in fog. 3 down, 2 to go. I didn't sleep after Leo. I couldn't. My hands still smelled like river algae. My shoes were soaked, though. I hadn't walked through any water, and on my skin right above my ribs a purple bruise shaped like a handprint bloomed overnight. It didn't hurt, but it pulsed. Tess was becoming stronger, not just in the lake or the mirrors or the shadows. She was with me now, inside me. Our blood may have separated in death, but our rage had fused in vengeance, and we weren't done. 2 remained. Aiden, the one who filmed it, who captured every second of her final screams and stored it in a folder marked "Do Not Open." The coward who watched and did nothing. And Mayor Franklin Rhodes, that's right, the 5th, not a teenager, not a friend, the man who knew, the man who covered it up, who told the police not to dig too deep, who buried Tess's autopsy in red tape, who told my mother I was delusional when I swore it wasn't an accident. I always thought he was just a politician. But the truth was worse. He was the architect. After Leo died, I drove to Aiden's place. A basement apartment behind a mechanic shop, the kind of place that stinks of oil and guilt. The door was ajar. He had been waiting. You're not going to kill me, right? He asked. The moment I stepped in, he didn't answer because I wasn't the one who come for him. Tess had. The lights flickered. His laptop screen glitched. I watched as dozens of video thumbnails began popping up on his desktop. Videos I had never seen, each one titled with a girl's name, not just Tess. Others, dozens victims. He hadn't just filmed her, had filmed all of them. He hadn't just been a bystander. He had been the chronicler of a legacy of horror. Aiden backed into the corner, sweat pouring down his neck. I was told to keep record, he babbled. For tradition, for the lake. I didn't want to. Tess didn't want to die, I said, and then every screen in the room turned blue, then black, then static came. That grainy snow. I saw her face, sweat pale, her mouth slowly forming the words. Say her name, Aiden sobbed. Tess. Say it again. Tess, I'm sorry. The water came up through the keyboard, poured from the monitor, vents flooded the room from nowhere, and in seconds he was gone. The laptop exploded, the walls cracked. I stood there in the silence that followed. A single message appeared on the black screen. Only one left. I left Aiden's place and drove straight to City Hall. It was 3:13 a.m. when I arrived. The building was dark, but the mayor's light was on, always working late, always watching. I didn't knock. I walked through the front door, hoodie up, Tessa's soaked ribbon in my fist. Mayor Rhodes looked up from his desk as if he'd been expecting me. I suppose you know, he said softly. I do, I replied. He leaned back. It was never about cruelty. It was about survival. I stared at him. You murdered girls for survival? He didn't blink. If we didn't offer the lake something pure every 5 years, it would flood, destroy the town. The legend was real. Your legend, I said, stepping closer. A lie you made real with blood. He didn't deny it. Tess wasn't the first. And you won't be the last if you keep this up. I'm not keeping anything up, I said. I'm ending it. He opened a drawer, pulled out a revolver. I'm not letting you ruin what this town is built on. But before he could lift it, his office filled with mist, thick, cold breathing. He turned. A shadow stood behind him. Tess, but not the version from my memories. This Tess was a being forged from the lake itself. Her dress was seaweed, her hair floated upward, her fingers bled lake water. Touched the mayor's shoulder. He screamed. The gun fell, and as the windows shattered and water rushed in from every corner of the room, I walked away. I didn't turn back. I didn't have to. He was gone before his body hit the floor, drowned. Not in water, but in truth. The building cracked behind me. The lake surged in the distance, but it didn't flood the town. It didn't devour the guilty and the innocent alike. It stopped. Because Tess had what she came for, justice. The morning after Mayor Rhodes drowned in his own office, the fog over Lark didn't lift, not in the sky, not in people's eyes. The news reports called it a tragedy, a heart attack, they said. An unfortunate plumbing accident. They added about the water damage. No one mentioned Tess, no one mentioned the others, but I walked down Main Street wearing her red ribbon around my wrist, and every window I passed caught her reflection instead of mine. She wasn't hiding anymore. She didn't need to whisper through mirrors. She stood tall behind me now, silent but seen. She was free, but that didn't mean it was over. That night I drove to the lake one last time. The dock was half submerged, the water eerily still. I stood barefoot on the edge, the same way Tess had 5 years ago, holding the folder I took from the mayor's office, names, dates, faces. All victims of the lake tradition. Not 5, not 10, 37, 37. Girls sacrificed, forgotten, swallowed by silence. I lit a match and dropped it into the folder. It burned blue, not red. Not orange, blue. Tess stood beside me again, her hair now dry, her face calm. She didn't say anything, but I understood it was time. She reached out and placed her hand over my heart, not forceful, not painful, just knowing. Then she stepped backward into the water and vanished. The lake rippled once, and then it was just no fog, no scream, no vengeance left, just quiet. For the first time since she died, I thought I'd feel peace, but I didn't feel emptiness, because when you burn your life down for justice, there's nothing left to live in afterward. Left Larkridge the next day, told no one, took no photos, didn't even leave a note for my mom. I knew I'd never belong there again. Not in a town that built its legacy on blood and silence. I changed my name, moved to a city where no one had ever heard of Larkridge Lake, tried to forget, but lakes don't forget. Sometimes I wake up drenched in sweat that smells like algae. Sometimes the mirrors in my apartment fog over for no reason, and sometimes I still hear her voice, not angry, not sad, just whispering, there are more. And I believe her, because last week I got a letter, no return address. Inside was a photo of a girl, face pale, eyes wide, hair floating around her like a halo on the back. A single word, next. I don't know where the next lake is, but I'll find it, because I'm not just Callie Hart. A final ripple in the water. I'm the scream that doesn't echo but lingers, and for the forgotten girls in silent lakes across the world, I'm coming. Thanks for staying with me until the end. If you believe every soul deserves to be heard, like, share, and subscribe. Let's make sure the silence never wins again. This story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries.